Yo, I have, you know how many people though who have come here and tell me like, yo, I have "I love you" written on my fucking wall. Cause like, yo, you gotta, and like somebody who's myself, I wake up every morning, dude. I don't know who I'm gonna be when I wake up because of my anxiety.
Yeah.
So I have to remind myself, like, yo, man, I love me. Otherwise, I'm not gonna make it through the fucking.
Dude, it's so important, especially as dudes. You get so, and I grew up in the South. My dad was a fighter. I kind of grew up in that world of being hyper physical. You get caught up in like, hey, you feel no pain. And if somebody crosses you, you break their fucking legs. Like it's just a hyper thing. And it's okay. Like you need to go, hey, no. It's love. It's all good. You can say I love you to your buddies. Like that's a good thing. It's okay to not always be the hardest dude in the room because that's important.
Yep.
It's probably more important than being the hardest cat in the room. You know what I mean?
Seating table 108 with Linc Hand.
Welcome to the chaos.
I love our producer because he always does this when we sit, because you know how this goes on podcasts. You start talking before you even go, and there's always some good shit that we have that you can follow back. But yo, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard us a little bit on the intro. I would like to introduce my special guest sitting right across from me. You've seen him on 68 Whiskey. You've definitely seen him in 42. But if you're in the nightlife scene, he's definitely turned you away at multiple nightclubs throughout this city.
Now he looks familiar. No, I'm joking.
Old school, iconic doorman, probably doing some of the hottest spots, and I can't wait to tell you about his transition. And for somebody like me and Danny who came out here to act, and this guy is such a successful actor, but not on top of that, just such a great dude, I can't wait for you to tell your story and people get to listen to you. So what up, Linc? How are you, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Thank you for having me here, brother. I appreciate it.
Welcome to the show, Linc.
Dude, thank you so much, man.
So you were saying how we were talking earlier. You say you're from the South. So give us a little bit about that and how you got out here.
Oh, wow. All right. So I'll do a cliff note version of it. I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, which is the dirty South. And my mom and dad own an advertising agency. And I was running around. They were auditioning for a dog food commercial. And I was like 5, 6 at the time. And I kept running into the room when they were auditioning. And my mom and dad were like, look, let's let him pretend like he's auditioning and he'll shut the hell up and go out of the room and go play with his toys. I could memorize all the lines. The producers were like, yo, he's actually the best one and he's your kid. Like, why don't we hire him? So it kind of turned into a big national thing. And we would do like tours at local like Chevrolet dealerships and all this kind of stuff, right? So I thought I was super cool. But being an actor was what somebody else did. That was for another part of the world. That's not you. You live in Alabama. And I was 6, so I wasn't thinking about anything other than to get me to do my job and to shut up. My mom and dad would go, hey, if you do your job and then you're quiet and you don't run around, we'll give you a $100 bill and we'd go to Toys R Us and you get to pick out any toys you want for either $100 bills. So as I would book other work, I would go up to the director and pull on their leg. And they're like, yeah, what's going on? I'm like, time to be paid. And they were all like, oh my God, this kid's going to be amazing because he's like already fleecing us for cash. And my parents are like, oh God, no. We do that in our thing so that... But so it was like my Toys R Us money.
Yeah, you pull out an advertisement like, I see this right here. I'm trying to get this.
Look, you see these G.I. Joes? They're not going to buy themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Yo, and Toys R Us back in the day was like...
Was the place.
The place.
That was heaven.
I was so sad when it closed.
Oh, it broke my heart.
Yeah.
It broke my heart.
So much nostalgia.
Yeah,
oh, so
definitely.
good. And so as I got older, I thought I was going to play sports the rest of my life. And that didn't really work out. And I was dating a girl who was a local model. There's like 2 modeling agencies in Birmingham. And a movie came to town and went to those modeling agencies to get people to audition. So I drove her to the audition. And they came out. They're like, well, what are you reading for? I was like, I'm not reading for shit. I brought her. And they're like, that's funny. What are you reading for? I was like, do you not understand what I'm saying to you? Like, I'm not reading anything. And they come out and hand me pages. And I was like, I'm not. And he goes, I don't care what you're saying. You're going to do this. So just relax and read it and we'll call you in. I'm like, okay. As I go in, a news crew comes and they actually film my audition while I'm auditioning and I get this job. And I was like, oh, well, shit, this is easy. I'm just going to move to Hollywood and be a big star. This is dope.
This is what we all think.
Yeah. I was like, this is a piece of cake. So loaded up my Camaro, because Alabama, if you don't have a Camaro, like, you know, what are you doing?
Red
right?
Camaro? Was it red?
Oh, 100% it was
for
red.
sure,
Bro.
yes.
Come on, son. You
My
know
boy
it
had
was
that
red.
V8, man.
Buddy, you know it was red.
I'm from New Orleans, man, so I know.
Oh, yeah, buddy.
We're neighbors.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, I got family there right
Yes.
now. And loaded up my car, moved out here. The movie never ended up happening. But I started acting class right away with Howard Fine, which is, if you really want to learn how to act and not just kind of pretend, you want to really learn the art of it, Howard Fine is the man. And so I went to his class, and I'll never forget it. The first one, like you audit, his master class. And I see people that I recognize from TV shows in this class, and they go up and do a scene, and I'm like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this in my life. This is incredible. And he gets up there and goes, okay, well, what worked, what didn't, and why? And they go into what was not working. And I'm like, everything worked. What are you talking about? What? And they were speaking a different language that I didn't understand. And I was like, oh God, I've got so much work to do. And so then I kind of dove in and fell in love with the process, fell in love with theater. I mean, LA is such a weird place to fall in love with theater, but that's kind of where I've learned and cut my teeth, like how to be an actor and what it is to be an actor, and just fell in love with it.
I think the coolest thing about theater, because you do theater, I did theater back in the day, it's like you got to be on.
Yeah.
Like when you're doing movie and TVs, like you've done it to a much higher caliber than we have, but you fuck up, cut, let's do it again. But in theater, it's like you got to do it.
Listen,
you got one shot.
If it's not working, you got to figure it out. Like you better do something different and make it work, because somebody paid money. You know, even if there's one person in there, maybe they paid $5, maybe they paid $20, like whatever it is. Or maybe you're at a bougie theater and they paid real money, but people paid to come see you. You better figure out how to make it a good performance. And it teaches you so much. I don't think enough people do it because they get these preconceived notions of what theater is. I had them when I moved out here, but that's where the real stuff is, because when you get on set and you're doing a movie or you're doing a TV show, the times it is actually the way it's written is so rare, because this light broke, or we don't have the car we're supposed to have. We don't have this, we don't have that. Well, we got to move now. Instead of being in a car, we're in a house. You've got to make those things work, and you got to do it on the fly. And there's too much money involved to go, oh, well, I need 4 weeks to prep and live in a car because my character's supposed to be in his car. And I need to, you don't have time for that shit. That's your homework. Yeah. And that's what theater teaches you, is how to adapt and continue to do your work and not fall apart just because something changes.
I mean, I think at this point, if I ever got to go back into acting, I think I'd want to do theater over movies. There's just so much more of a
to start for sure
adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
So is it safe to assume then that, you know, while you're going to Howard Fine doing the acting thing, that's how you got into the nightlife scene, because you needed to make some money, pay bills, and have the time to.
Oh man, so my thing was like, one, trying to figure out what I was going to do from cash, and I did everything from, I worked at Abercrombie and Fitch, which you know, it was a magical time, and
I was always intimidated to go into that store, bro, because of the models.
Did you have to work shirtless and then spray the cologne?
Oh, listen, they realized real quick that I wasn't going to fold shit. They're like, look, just stand in the front and talk to people, man. Like, you can do that. Because I would take the clothes and they're like, yeah, we need you to fold this. I'm like, what? And I would knot it up and stuff it in the back of shit. And then they caught me and they're like, what are you doing? I was like, look, I'm not really going to fold clothes. And they're like, look, you're great at talking to people. Just go up here and fucking make people feel comfortable. I was like, all right, done. I can do that. But that cologne still haunts me to this day. Because it was, you know, like in the nightclub where you're at, like there's smoke and there's alcohol and all the shit that kind of sticks to you when you go home. Fierce from Abercrombie and Fitch was like radiating out of my pores, dude.
I can smell it right now.
Yeah. Oh, like you want me to cry? Like give me some of that stuff and I'll immediately start crying. Torture. But that's what got me into it. Was a buddy of mine I was in acting class with. He had a very successful company, and he asked me if I wanted to work with him. So we started working, and then him and his cousin decided they wanted to kind of go into promoting some nightclubs, and they knew me and they trusted me, and they're like, hey, would you be our cash guy? And I was like, okay. So I'm sitting at the front just taking people's money, and that's how I got into the world of the nightlife, which I thought was going to be a whole lot more fun than it was. And I'm just sitting there taking money and everybody's having fun. I'm like, no, I'm the dick that's just taking everybody's cash. And everybody's pissed off at me because they're handing me the money and I'm the asshole because I'm taking the money. I'm like, I'm not charging you. I'm just the one taking the money. So, yeah, that's how I got into it.
Oh, man, that's funny. So, okay, so how'd your nightlife career kind of unfold a little bit as you started? Because he's worked with Amy Phelan. We had Amy on the show before. Her episode will be coming out shortly. She's great, and she's talked so highly about you and all the times that you guys have had. So how did your nightlife career progress, and then how were you able to transition that into becoming the successful actor? Because now he's out of nightlife and just regular on TV shows and movies. So this is what a lot of us are always trying to hope to do. Yeah. Anybody out there listening, this is your chance to really get some good tips.
Yeah, I want to hear that, because you said you got into nightlife, and nobody ever thinks they're going to just do it for, they think they're going to do it for like a couple years to get by. And then like 10 years pass. That's what happened to me.
Yeah.
And I guess Mike as well. And a lot of people we had on here. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I literally thought I was going to do this for a weekend. And it was like a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And I'm like, oh, this is dope. Great. Cool. Oh, I got to come back and do it next weekend? Okay. And then it turned into like, it was 2 years of that. And for me, I was like the cash box for like the first, I want to say like 3 months. And then my buddies left and some other people came in. And the new people that came in paid me double what my friends were paying me.
And which club was this?
Shag, right off Cahuenga. Okay. It's like a little small spot. I think Boogie still owned it. So anyway, they started paying me more, and I was like, okay. And they all trusted me. They realized really quick that I was trustworthy, because I would always carry the box to the back, and depending on who was there, everybody would count different, like count the door different, and go, oh, well, so and so gets this, right? And kind of look at me. I'm like, no. I know enough of this. Like, this is the breakdown of it. And they go, oh, we were just testing you. I was like, bullshit. You're right. I was like, $20 ain't worth like me losing my gig.
Yeah. Right.
And so after that, then all of a sudden, the person started training me to like, hey, we want you to actually run the door, because if you're that trustworthy back there with just the money and this, then we can trust you to do this. So that's how I kind of elevated up through. And then I just did that.
It's funny that they let you play with the money first.
Yeah.
And then they're like, now you can let people in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of...
It's weird. Usually it's the opposite way.
Yeah, exactly.
You're at the front and then we let you in the back.
That's what LA is about, man.
Yeah, it's all these random hustles. Like you said, you're a trustworthy dude, and especially in the nightlife industry, it's kind of hard to find people you really trust that much, especially with, the cash that's what we're all here for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and at that time, there was nights where there was a lot of cash coming through the door, like crazy amounts of cash. And it'd be real easy if you just wanted to skim or pocket stuff that you could be that person. And that never was my jam, my vibe. And so it allowed me to kind of move up and have more to do. But as far as like the transition, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be there. Like it was always a means to an end, so I could pay for acting class and I could pay for my gym, and because I'd be at the club until 3:30 in the morning, and then I would get up at 5 and go to the gym and work out. And so that was a nightmare for me, but it always felt like that was my Rocky moment, like my personal, like eating eggs kind of deal. And I would see people that would come through that were older, and that, I'd be chatting them up, and they're like, yeah, I wanted to do this or I wanted to do that. And now they're at a point where those dreams are completely gone and they're just doing this thing. And that terrified me, because I was a young kid and I was like, ooh, that's scary. I don't want to wake up and be 60 and have given up my pursuit of something. So it always kept me hungry.
That's a very different outlook than we had.
Well, when I started, I was like 22 when I got to LA, and there was like 30-year-olds like telling me, yeah, I'm still bartending. And I told myself, I'm like, I'm not going to be there at 30. Yeah. Cut to, I'm 33. I'm still fucking doing it.
Yeah.
You just never know what the plan is.
Yeah.
The plan doesn't work out the way you intended sometimes.
Yeah. No, listen, it rarely ever does.
Yeah.
And for me, as those things were kind of moving along, I reached a point where I actually had I'm probably going to get sappy, and I'll try not to cry, because my dad passed away 8 years ago. And I was having this talk with my dad. Is after a long weekend, like I almost choked out this dude at the door, like just one of those kind of nights, you know what I mean? And I was telling my dad, I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm just going to give this up and move back home, marry my high school sweetheart. And my dad was like, no, you're not my son. And I'm like, what do you? Nah, I've thought about it, Dad. This is what I want to do. I don't really want to do this anymore. He's like, that's not true. He said, you're just trying to give up right now. And he goes, that's not my son. You're not going to give up. And I was like, well, no, Dad, I've really thought about it. And he said, buddy, because he drove out here with me when I moved to California. And he goes, I want you to think about something with me. I was like, okay. He goes, you remember when we left your grandmother's house? He goes, we packed everything in your car we could, and me and you drove cross country to California. I said, yeah, of course. He goes, you remember the memories that we had and how much we laughed and how much fun we had? He goes, we cried. And because we laughed, we got a flat tire in Flagstaff, like the stories that came along with it. I said, yeah, some of the best stories ever. And he goes, now imagine if we had left your grandmother's house, we close our eyes and open them, and we're in California. Think of everything we would have missed, right? And so I was like, okay. And he said, that's the beauty of what you're doing. He goes, it's the journey. He goes, the beauty is in the journey. He's like, don't give up your journey because you're afraid. And it hit me like a ton of bricks, and I'm bawling, crying, and I'm like, wow, you're so smart, da-da-da-da-da. And so from then on, I was like, you have to be more focused in what you're doing instead of just kind of piddling through and going, hey, I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to do, but I wasn't doing the extra things that I had to do if you really want to make it happen. Because there's prerequisites in everything. Like, hey, you got to study, you got to do this, you got to do that. That's a given. Now, how much of the extra stuff are you willing to do? How bad do you really want to do the thing that you say you want to do? And that just kind of awoke a fire in me to get hungry and get busy and start truly pursuing what I was doing, because I would get opportunities. I'd be telling everybody, I was like, yeah, I'm an actor. And I was studying, and I was doing the class, and I was doing theater. And I'd get opportunities, and I'd get pages, and I would do anything but read the damn script. Do anything but read the pages of dialogue for the job that I said I wanted. I'd rather watch some random fucking TV show or go chase some girl or do some bullshit. And after that conversation, I stopped doing the bullshit. There was parties, there was girls that I was like, hey, I can't go out right now. I've got an audition for this show. And I'd go to the gym and do bonus cardio so I could study, because that kept me from looking at my phone and going, oh, well, I really want to hang out with this girl. You know what I mean? And that's what got me out of it, was just that kind of awakening where it's like, look, it's a means to an end. It's real easy to be stuck in quicksand, whatever that quicksand is. And that drove me to push the pedal down to get out.
That's
my condolences, man.
Yeah. How long ago was that?
That was, doing the math, like 15 years ago, something like that.
And then I've only known Linc for a short amount of time, but I feel like I've known him for a long time. So just looking at him now, his wife's cool as shit. The guy's working his ass off, and he's got some amazing things coming up. So it's like, yo, man, you lived that journey. Yeah. And like, look where you are now.
Yeah. That's a great piece of advice.
That's inspiring.
Great piece of advice that your dad gave you, man, because we forget. I mean, and just let's talk about acting. Like that moment you close your eyes and say from the trip, there's stuff that you can't recall and bring up in your work and later in life. Like everything I've learned, that every single thing that you do in life, you can use in your acting and in your craft later.
Of course.
You have to like absorb the moments.
Of course. It's the thing of, you know, when you're working, when you're an actor, like your job is to tell a human story, and it's to tell a story. And all this stuff that we go through is what being a human is. And that's different for every single one of us. We all got different stories in this room. And that's what makes you unique, is those stories and how you tell them. And that's sometimes the hardest thing, is it doesn't matter if you're a seasoned actor or you're just starting, is the thought of like, well, I'm not cool enough. I'm not enough, because you hear these big fancy stories from celebrities or these different people that you may look up to, and you're like, well, that's not my life. I didn't have that. I didn't fight a dragon when I was 12 years old, or I didn't, I wasn't Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, like all that stuff. But you being you is what makes that story incredible, because there is no you. And I know that sounds cheesy, but there's nobody that can say a line like you say it. And there's nobody that's lived the life that you've lived except for you. And so when you're truly authentic with yourself, I really believe that comes through, and that touches people because it's authentic. It's not a mask. It's not a shield. Instead of shielding, you've kind of opened up everything to go, hey, this is the true nuts and the guts. And I think that's what draws people into great performances, is just seeing raw, true emotion and raw, true conveyance of a story, because that's kind of what, at least that's what drives me. And when I see something like that, I'm touched for days after I watched it. You know what I mean? And to me, that's worthy. Right.
People forget that like traumatic or painful experiences in your life are usually the most interesting ones that you can bring up and recall. And when you see someone that's really feeling something, it hits you because it takes you somewhere.
Well, I mean, music, nightlife, right? Music in club. Music and songs, the ones that everybody fall in love with, is like the story of loss, like your first love, right?
Yeah.
Everybody can relate to that, whether you're 12 years old or you're 30 years old, because you've had a first love. You've had a true love that didn't work out, or this went wrong. You can relate to that. That's those things that you can relate to. And that's the beauty of it. And it's incredible. You can't beat that. And trying to pretend like nothing affects you is you're doing yourself a disservice, and you're doing the audience a disservice, because we're all affected whether or not we want to admit it or not. And we're all guys, and it's kind of, sometimes you kind of get caught up in the, no, you can't scratch me. I'm impervious. And I try to get to the point, like for me, when I first moved out here, the big thing was you got to lose your Southern accent. I'm like, okay, sure, great. Studied with a guy. And then the first real job that I booked out here was for a movie. And they got through and they're like, hey, you think you could do it in a Southern accent? I was like, fuck me.
Right.
I was like, yeah, I can probably do it in a Southern accent. Like, I'll give it a fucking shot. And the crazy thing was, and the reason why I say that is, once I got authentic with myself and stopped trying to do what I thought casting wanted me to do or what the producers wanted me to do, I started working. And then I forget that. Like, hell, I forgot it a couple weeks ago for a thing. And I was like, hey, fucko, let go of the trying to do it right shit. There is no right. There's a billion ways to do it. And all of them are right, or all of them are wrong. It's all good. Just do it. And
casting sometimes doesn't even know what they want.
Most of the time they don't.
Right.
They're waiting for you to come in and show them.
Exactly.
And that's but again, we get caught up in, because you start thinking about the money, or this can change my life, or this will make me a star, or all the stuff that you tell yourself. And it just kind of, at a certain point, you got to let it all go. But you forget it. Yeah. And you go, wait, all right, I got to remind myself of this thing.
Yeah. So something we really like to touch on this part of the show, and I kind of want to switch gears a little bit, because we always talk about the mental aspect in the nightlife sense, but I think what I would really love to know is, like, as your career started to build, and to all the audience members out there, we're going to stay on the acting kick, because I know me and Danny really want to hear a lot about this, and your story is fucking dope, bro. I'm so glad you're here. This conversation has been awesome.
Yeah.
When you started doing some of these bigger movies, like when you got casted in 42, and you're supporting actor to Chad Boswick, God rest his soul, mentally, how did that go from, as you're starting to go, to realize, oh, I'm here now, I have a level that I have to keep? How did that mentality and discipline and everything you learned along the journey translate into where you are now as being a top-tier actor?
It's funny. For me, I was afraid that everybody was going to realize that I was a phony. I kept waiting for somebody to go, he's full of shit, not real, not the real deal. And so it terrified me, because when I got the audition for 42, I'll tell you a quick story about that process.
Give us a timeline of when that happened too, and where you were working at the time.
At the time, I was working for a production company providing like audience for TV shows. So I was around all the people doing the things I wanted to do, and I was putting people in seats to watch these actors come in on these different shows and do these things. So I was like surrounded by all the things that I wanted to be and do, but I was just this invisible cog in the machine. And that was painful and wonderful and all those kind of things. And I get the audition, like I was auditioning for a bunch of other stuff. At that time I'd done like some co-star work on TV shows, like some bigger TV shows. So I was starting to work and get jobs, but I get the audition for this movie and I look and it says Warner Brothers and I'm like, okay, it's a baseball movie. Like, I ain't getting this. It'd be cool, but not getting it. And I go in and I audition, and I remember in the audition at the time, the casting director was reading and she wasn't looking at me. And just for whatever reason in my head, I was like, I'm going to make her look at me. And so I just kind of got real quiet and said the words. And then I stopped and I said, hey. And then she looked at me and then I went on with the scene. But he was all in the scene. And as I'm walking out the door, like in character about to walk out the door, I see her turn around and she goes, that kid can bring it. And I kind of stop and I sort of get nervous and they're like, thank you very much. And I leave. I'm like, well, that felt good. Like I had a good audition, go home and
that's
shut
also
it down,
the
right?
worst thing to hear too.
Yeah.
It's like the best and worst thing to hear on the way out of a door.
And so then I get a call back and I go into the room and there's celebrities in the room. And I'm like, oh shit, this is something different. And I go in and I meet the director. The director's Brian Hegland, who's won an Academy Award. And so I'm like, oh, this is bigger than, okay. Because I haven't looked any of this stuff up yet.
You just still think you're doing a baseball movie.
Yeah.
You don't realize what you're doing.
I have no clue about anything. I have no idea who's in it, nothing. And so we start talk about the character, talk about everything, and then we do it. And we do it a couple times, and he's like, all right, he's very soft-spoken. He's like, all right, thank you very much. And I was like, I brought another headshot. And he's like, he goes, we've already got one. We're good. He goes, and then casting goes, well, we'll take it. We use them to, throw darts at them when we get a bunch of them. I said, well, if that helps me get the part, then that's dope. Put it all over the wall. I'll wallpaper this place. And, kind of like a little stupid, joke that you're trying to do anything to get something in the room. And I leave, and I'm like, okay, well, I didn't stumble too bad in there. Jump cut, a week later, they're like, hey, you made it past the auditions. They want to see you play baseball. And I had just booked an episode of Justified, TV show on FX. And my reps at the time were like, hey, he's actually filming a TV show during that time. Is there another? And they're like, yeah, there's a special day. We'll just bring him in for that day. So jump cut to the morning of, I get another audition that morning before. So the baseball tryouts was at 11 a.m. in Westlake High School, which is down toward Malibu. My audition, for people that are not in LA, or if you're in LA, you'll know this place, I was all the way down in Santa Monica for my first audition, and I had to get all the way to Malibu. My first audition was at 9:30 a.m. They were late. Didn't get finished till 10:15. I come running out. I'm running down the street. I'm stripping my clothes off so I can change into my baseball gear and try to get there, right?
You ever played baseball?
Like Little League.
Okay.
Like my sports were basketball and football, so I hadn't played baseball since I was a kid, but I'm an athlete, so I can throw a baseball. And so we get there, and I throw my clothes in the trunk of my car, run around, close the trunk, go to open the door, and my car had keyless entry. I locked myself out of my car.
Oh, shut up.
And I'm like, I panic, full panic, turn around, there's a GMC right next to me. I'm like, they can cut a key to my car in 2 minutes. This is great. I run across, I'm barefooted. I got baseball pants on and like half a baseball shirt as I'm running across the street. And they had heard me scream in the middle of the road, right? So like, I'm a crazy person.
Oh, yeah. Tuesday. It's a normal day.
And at this point, I had looked up, since it was baseball tryouts, I looked up who was in the movie. And it was Harrison Ford, Chadwick, Warner Bros., like legendary films. Like, I was like, oh, this is a huge movie. And so I'm running across the street. These two guys walk up to me. Oh, what's going on? I was like, you got to understand, I'm an actor. There's a movie, Harrison Ford. I'm going to be in it if I can do the baseball thing. And I'm just stuttering and run. And they're looking at me like I got 12 heads. And I'm like, I locked my keys in my car, man. I'm not lying to you. And they're like, well, we got your ID. I was like, it's in the fucking car, man. It's in my pants where my keys are. Fuck. And they're like, well, you got to come inside and talk. I was like, I don't have time to come inside and fucking talk. We got to go there right now. And so I go inside, and this guy starts talking like the slowest movie talk you could ever imagine in your life. He's like, well, sir. And I was like, God damn it, just give me a hammer. And they're like, excuse me? I said, give me a fucking hammer, please. They hand me a hammer. I run back across the street. I smash out the window to my car. Crawl in the back, pull out my ID. I'm like, here's my fucking ID. Thank you so much for the hammer. Here's my window. He walls it up in a towel, takes off. I bomb. Call my reps, tell them what's happening. They're like, all right, well, you got 15 minutes to get to a place that's going to take you 45 minutes with no traffic. They're like, we'll call casting and let them know. They call me back. I make it to the 101 from Santa Monica. So I had to go up the 405 and get to the 101. I'm bobbing and weaving through cars, get to the 101, and God opened up the traffic. There was not a car on the road. I've never seen it like it since, except during the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
I floor it. Now I'm in a Corvette, so I'm breaking some speed limits. And I get a call from my reps, and they're like, hey, look, casting knows, take your time. They're not happy, but they understand. I'm like, all good. I'll get there. I'm going to make it. And they're like, what's that sound? I'm like, no, don't worry about it. Talk to you guys later. And I hang up the phone. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm like kind of wiping my face. I keep feeling stuff in my face. I make it there with 2 minutes to spare. I make it all the way from Santa Monica to Westlake High School in Malibu in 15 minutes.
Deep Malibu.
Christ.
Deep.
Yeah.
Good thing you had a Corvette.
Dude, I was doing 160 miles an hour. All right? Like, real talk. With my window blown out. I slide into the parking lot. I'm from Alabama, Dukes of Hazzard style. Coming in hot. Jump out like there's production there. And I get out, and I come running up, and I got my cleats in my hand. And this person from production goes, are you Linc? And I was like, yes, sir. They're like, not a parking spot, son. And I was like, sweet. And they're like, just park over there. You're good. You're here. You made it. And I come running up, and I get there, and everybody's staring at me like I'm crazy. And there's only 2 other actors there. Ben McKenzie, who was the star of The O.C. and Gotham and all this. Obviously, Gotham hadn't happened yet, and John Bernthal. So 2 giant stars and me. Only actors there. Everybody's like in a semicircle, like looking at this crazy kid. And they're just kind of staring at my face. And they're like, what's on your... And there was blood from the glass that had been blown out of the windshield. The glass was chipping pieces of my face, so my face was bleeding. And so they're all staring at me. And the person comes up and goes, your reps told us that you broke out your window to get here. I was like, yes, sir. They're like, why'd you do it? I just looked around. I was like, I didn't want to be late. And every single one of them just stared at me. And they're like, okay, well, let's see what you got. And then from then on, it was game time. And then we did it, and I got the phone call. And the whole running joke, because we played baseball for 3 months before we started filming. And the running joke was like, oh, you got your keys locked? Fucking Linc will smash out your window. It's all good. We got it. But it was like that moment, like that long story was about that moment when I said I didn't want to be late. I knew I didn't have the money to replace that window, but I knew there would never be another point in my career that I wasn't willing to give it everything I had. And that meant everything in my guts, everything that I had to do, whether it was sacrifice or whatever, I was going to do it. And so that was a victory for me. And then when the phone call actually came, I lost my mind. And then it was, oh shit, this is a real thing. Now you got to go perform. And you asked me if I played baseball.
Yeah.
So by the time we had left training, I was almost throwing 90 miles an hour. So like I was working with Major League Baseball coaches. It was incredible. And so we go first day of filming. We're on set. The extras are all minor league baseball players and like in the farm systems and like they're pros. And I'm up there and getting ready, and they wanted me to throw several real pitches and do my dialogue with Chad and some different stuff. And then there was going to be like this fight. And so the DP's back there, and there's a steady camera right in my face. There's cranes. There's thousands of extras in the stands. So I'm shitting my wardrobe. Like, I'm terrified. And so the DP's out there, and he puts a camera right behind home plate, the catcher. And so I walk over to him when everything's getting ready to set up, and I was like, hey, I'm throwing kind of hard. And I was like, I'm really amped up and excited right now. I said, I'm going to step into it. I was like, I just don't want to throw one wild and I break $1 million plus camera on take one. And I'll never forget the look on his face. He just smiled. He goes, son, we shoot car crashes and crazy shit all the time. He goes, we're good. And I was like, yes, sir. And I walk back to the mound, and I'm terrified. And I'm literally just shaking like a leaf. And I'm watching the extras do their baseball warm-ups, and they're not paying attention to me. And just like the movie Major League, where like Charlie Sheen's about to do the final pitch thing, where he has his glasses on, he slams the ball in his glove. I have this little thing I say to myself. I'm like, this is that moment you've been waiting for in your life. Do you do it, or do you fall apart? Slam the ball in the glove, and I turn around, just got laser focused. Action, do my thing, and I step into a pitch right down the dick, just right down the pipe. Whack! Do the dialogue, cut. DP stands up and goes, guys, we got to bring in a shield. They had to bring in like something to be in front of the camera because I was throwing so hard that he got nervous that one would come through. Yes. And I turned around, the extra was like, fuck yeah, that's my boy. And so I was like, yo, all right, here we go. Now let's do this thing. But it was like that moment of all these things coming to that one throw.
Yeah.
And then like just the ego boost of the dude going, all right, yeah, we need something in front of us right now. That kid's throwing hard.
Yeah.
Something blew my mind. Like, what if none of that would have happened for the audition?
Yeah.
Like, you would have had your keys.
Yeah.
You would have gotten there half hour early.
Yeah.
You know, like how differently everything would have. And it brings back the story you told about your dad, the journey.
Yeah.
Like, that never would have happened. And you wouldn't have had that story.
No.
Right?
No.
It's so crazy, man,
and that's
how the world works.
That's the stuff that you spend all this time like trying to get past, and that's the good stuff. Because after we got done with that, Brian, the director, Hegland, walked up to me, and he knelt down, and he imitated what I was doing. And he just was looking straight ahead, and he goes, that's going to be in the trailer. And it's the first time I've ever been on a major movie set my entire life. And I look at him, I said, Brian, this is my first big movie, man. I said, I'm terrified. Don't fuck with me. And I'm like, got this big smile on my face. And he looks at me and grins, and he goes, I don't know where it will be. He goes, but I promise you it will be in the trailer. And he walked off and goes, just keep doing what you're doing. And so we wrap, and I'm back home, and it's a couple months later. I used to always go to sleep with the TV on. And all of a sudden I hear this Jay-Z music, and then I hear my voice yelling. I'm waking up out of sleep, and I look, and there I am on TV in the trailer for the movie.
That's crazy, dude.
And I was just,
I love this story.
I got chills, bro.
Yeah,
It was, hey, man.
It was,
oh, God.
It was such an out of body experience. And, you're asking about how the transition and all that kind of stuff goes. Like, that was one of those career moments, right?
Yeah.
Now, I had a small role in that movie, and I go to the premiere, and I'm doing the thing, and I'm standing around. I get to meet King Griffey Jr. I get to meet Jackie Robinson's family, and I'm with all these crazy successful people. And I never got to work with Harrison because he was on different days than I was there. And he's sitting around talking to some people, and the person I was with was like, you should go take a photo with him. And I was like, nah. And they're like, no, don't be a dickhead. Like, go. And
Harrison Ford.
And so I walk over, and his security's there, and they see me, and I kind of nod, and I was like, excuse me, Mr. Ford. And he goes, Ostermuller. And he comes over, and he grabs me and hugs me like we were best friends. And I literally almost started crying in his damn arms. I'm like, I was like, Han Solo's like hugging me right now. Like, what's going on, right? And so we sit there and chat for a second, and he was like, you're a scary son of a bitch. And like, we just had this moment. And I'm like, yo, this is
cool.
This is unreal.
Yeah.
And when the night was over, I went home. And then the next day I was like, well, okay, I got to go back to work.
Yeah.
Got to go back to my production job and have no idea what's going to be next. And it's just kind of, well, you're unemployed again. So now figure it out.
Figure it out.
And it doesn't I'm sure, you know, you get to like the status of The Rock or something like that. But it was just kind of you're back in the journey.
Yeah.
And then I booked another movie, and then I started booking a couple TV shows where I was recurring. And then there was a thing for a moment where they were going to, hey, we want to do this 3-picture deal. We're going to make you an action star because they knew my past. And I was like, wait, these are the things that make you a household name. Like, it's happening. And then the show that I was on got canceled. That deal fell through. And my dad died. And it was like all this stuff just kind of piled up. And you're like, wait a minute, what the fuck just happened? Like, everything was rolling right. But through all that time, it makes you stronger for those moments, and you cherish those victories that much more when you do get one. And I always tell anybody, everybody, whether you're a series regular on a show, you're starring in stuff, or you got literally one word that you say like, hey, I got your shoes, or whatever it is, that's a huge victory. And you got to embrace it and cherish it, because one day you're going to tell a kid that same story, what you went through to get that, hey, I got your shoes line in a movie, because that did something for you and that catapulted you to the next place. Now, it may be 15 years before you reach that level that in your mind is, I made it. But to somebody else, they would give everything they got to say, here's your shoes. And that's the beauty and the struggle of this, because you get so caught up in what's next, or how do I reach whatever that level you think is the level. And then when you get to that new level, you go, well, that's not the level. I remember I used to dream, I'm big about, I'll stare at something, and I got it from when I was in school. I'd stare at the clock to like get to the class I wanted to, which was PE. And I'd close my eyes and I'd look at the clock. I'd close my eyes and look at the clock, because I knew at one point when I opened my eyes, it would be the time for me to go there. And so when IMDb started, I remember I had that one credit on there, and I was like, one day I'm going to be able to close my eyes and open them and scroll. And so every day I'd look at that one credit and close my eyes and open them, and then scroll the mouse. And then I'd turn it off. And then when I got to the point where I could scroll one time, then remember I got where I could scroll more. And then now it's just pages. And when I was wishing for that time to scroll, I was like, then I have made it. And I'm done.
Next level thing now. Like,
Yeah.
keep missing out on these big projects, and you know, one of them really got me down for like a week.
Of course.
And it happens.
Yeah.
But you just got to keep fighting. And like, I can't quit. Like I have the Rocky, one of his famous quotes, like, you know,
Yeah.
nothing's going to hit you as hard as life. It's
Yeah.
about who keeps getting up.
Yeah.
And like, that's like my mantra of life, man. You just,
I mean, Danny, you've overcome so much, not even just as a person,
yeah.
not even in the acting side, just as a person, to continue to keep doing that. Like, it's wild.
Right. And for me, it took me having a severe injury to wake me up.
Yeah.
You know, and that opened my eyes, and I was like, okay, now I got to step up.
And that's the thing. And it doesn't matter how hard you can hit. It's how hard can you get hit,
Yes.
and you keep moving forward. Because I remember, so you mentioned 68 whiskey.
Yeah.
There was a dry spell right before that where I could not get arrested. I thought I was doing good work, but I had some stuff going on where I just, for whatever reason, it wasn't translating. And when I went and did the audition, I thought it went well, but it's just, you don't ever know. And I was kind of in this negative space where I was like, how did I screw up something that was so down my alley that like, I'm fucking done. My career's done. It's game over. And I remember I was on the couch and I was about to lay face down, which is not what I do. And I put my phone away, because every day I'd stare at my phone, try to imagine my ringtone for my agent. And I went, you know what? Fuck it. I'm done. I don't want to think about it anymore. Turn my phone off. Like, just, turn the screen off. Slid it ahead. I'm taking a nap. Laid my head down, got in that perfect, comfortable position where, like, immediately you have to pee because you're so comfortable, like you'll never find that position again. And I was like, I'm holding it in because I found the sweet spot, and I need the sweet spot right now. I'm just going to sleep. My ringtone went. And I look at it and it goes, hey, you're the choice. Network's making up their mind right now. And I was like, immediately went from, all right, I'm comfortable taking a nap to everything's firing. My synapses are going crazy.
Just peeing all over the place.
Literally, I peed in the corner of the house, right? My dog's looking at me like, bro, go outside. And so it literally, it took a week for Network to come back with a decision. And I was at Costco and I got the call and I started crying. And so I went home and I walk in the house because it's Ron Howard, it's Brian Grazer, I'm at the beginning of this thing and it's going to be this special deal. And I walk in and my wife's got all this shit on her face. She had done a mask and like light treatments and like looked like an alien and she's sitting on the floor playing with makeup. And I walk in, I was standing at the door and I got tears in my eyes. And she turned around, she goes, oh my God, you got it. And I was like, I got it. And we just grabbed each other and hugged and cried. And it was all those years of being close and this and that was worth it, because in that moment, all the years of the struggle, doesn't matter if it took 30 years or 30 minutes, it's worth it, because that victory is worth it. And then the way those things go, you just embrace every moment of it. And so I say all that to when you're in that spot where you're grinding, because I'm in a similar grind right now as well. You have to remember that it's there. You have to get out of your own way. You got to trust it. And it's such a cliche thing, and it's such a alchemist, the secret kind of thought. But in the arts, being creative is a subjective thing. And you have to let go of all you trying to shape it and going, I'm going to do all the things I can be so that I'm great when my time comes. Let the universe do what it do. You do what you do. And then those moments will come together and it will be powerful because it's coming. It's right around the corner. And when it comes and when that bell rings, you have that moment to yourself where you just smile and you know what? You son of a bitch, you did it. Yeah. Okay. Embrace it and enjoy it. Because if it was easy, then we wouldn't be sitting here fucking having this conversation, because nobody would give a shit. It's the saying of it's like if every day was a sunny day, then what the fuck is a sunny day? Nobody cares. Sunny days are great because like when it's a shitty rainy day, like it's something different. Yeah. And that's all this stuff is. And it's such a wild thing, because with social media and especially being in the nightclub world, you see people come in that can just stick $100 bill in your hand like it's nothing. And maybe at that point you're struggling to pay rent, or your car got dented and you can't fix, like whatever.
Or you need to pay for a window that you smashed.
Exactly. You got to pay for all that stuff. And sometimes you just got to let all that, and it's the hardest thing in the world, let all that shit go. It's like, hey, look, there's a reason why I'm here. There's a reason why my journey has been what it is. And maybe it's because you're supposed to go through all that so that when you do reach that level, one day that kid comes up to you, and instead of being a dick, you go, hey, you're going to be good. This is all you got to do. Now, it may be tomorrow. It may be 45 years from now. But if you're willing to go for the ride and you're willing to take the trip, you'll get there. And then you'll realize when you get there, it was really the trip.
It's a trip, and you can't quit, man.
No. Oh, hell no.
You can't quit on yourself, on your dreams. I almost did, man, and I would have been a miserable person.
Yeah.
And you never want to be like, what if? That's the worst feeling in the world right there. That's the worst question you can ask yourself. What if? Especially if you can't do it
Dude,
anymore.
I'll say this, and I know I've been talking the entire time.
Bro, this is amazing. No, this has been like
amazing.
We're gonna close out the episode shortly, but like, I'll close this out. But let's hear what the last thing you had to say.
This is so. My father, he had lung cancer. That's what killed him, right? And so, he got to see me in 42 on the big screen, so I'll never forget that moment. But right after that, he passed. And so that Christmas, I got to see him because he died that January. And we sit there and had that final conversation face to face. And my dad's this big, strong, powerful man, like very philosophical, like all these kind of things that I just bore you with telling you about. And he said, son, I want to tell you one thing, because we knew it was close. He said, when you're in the position that I'm in, he goes, the only thing you will regret is the things you didn't do. And that's what you just said, is like, you don't ever want to leave a stone unturned. If your dream is to be an actor, if your dream is to be a musician, your dream is to be successful in business, then you strap in and you do it. Because if you do make it to that moment where you know those moments are less than there are more, you want to be able to look in the mirror and go, hey, whoo, I gave this motherfucker a ride. You know what I mean? And that's what you're doing, and that's worthy, and that's beautiful.
That's it, man.
I love this show for so many reasons, and then the different people we get to have on here, but we've definitely haven't had an episode like this, and I think the listeners are going to get so much out of it. But homie, just you sitting across from us, and just me and Danny listening to you, like where we are in our careers and where life's going. I needed this conversation today.
Oh, man, I needed it so bad.
I needed to hear this, and I'm grateful for you being on the show. I'm grateful you've come into my life as a friend. I'm grateful for the support I've gotten from you, and like, man, you're a special person. You really are a special person, and I'm extremely grateful that you're sitting here right now, man. Like, you've really touched me, and I know you've touched Danny a lot, too.
Oh, yeah.
In this conversation.
I definitely need that, because I've been having a funky couple of weeks.
Same,
they know,
man.
like, I auditioned for a big movie. I didn't get it. I thought it was right down my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Like, I thought it was written for me.
Yeah.
And I didn't even get a call back.
Yeah.
And that shit ruined me for, like, a week.
Yeah.
And then I kind of, I started compensating with, like, having a few drinks every night, and then it just kind of threw my balance, my chemicals off. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, hearing this today, man, it's so needed.
The universe is interesting on how it works.
Yeah,
man. It
like you
really
got me so
is.
fired up.
Yeah,
man.
like, but it's just like, yo, that level of discipline that I know this man has. I'm like, all right, like, yo, you've told me what I need to do, and it's like, you've not only told me, but yo, like, you've done it yourself.
Yeah,
and it's just, I'm kind of just, I don't got any words, and usually I got a lot to say.
I know, man.
This seems like a nice place to take a break.
Should we end off how we usually end off?
I mean, if you got a great night, give us, since we kind of moved past the nightlife, give us your favorite story from 42 or one of the or 68 Whiskey. Just one of your favorite stories you have in your acting career and on this crazy journey you've been on that we've been so grateful to just hear everything.
I love it because you can't see it, but he's smiling so big, like the fucking Joker, bro.
And before you do that, plug like your Instagram, where people can find you, what movies you got coming out or possible projects you're working on, and then let's touch us off with your favorite story.
My Instagram and social is super simple. It's the Linc Hand, the like TheLinchhand, all one word. You can find me on all the platforms like that. See a lot of pictures of my dog and random shit, and my wife too. But it's. I think there is a movie coming out at some point, but I don't even remember. I'm terrible about that. There's probably an episode of SWAT floating around somewhere that I did earlier this year. But I think for me, I'll tell you a stupid story about 42 because it's ego and guy talk, right? So all these extras, and there's thousands of them in the stands, and we've gone through a bunch of different scenes, and now it's like the big fight scene where I'm fighting the team, or kind of coming out. It's supposed to be that altercation. And so it was like blah, 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 words, now yelling, and we go get together and get our scrap on. Now, jump cut, I'm going to go back in time just to tell you this one thing so it sets up. I did a national commercial early in my career where a background artist blocked my face in this shot that they ended up using in the commercial, and it cost me $100,000 in residuals at a time where I had maybe $25 to my name. And so
that's a lot of Toys R Us,
man. My God. Right. So I was bitter about that forever. And so I overhear these two background artists that were playing umpires going like, hey, in the fight, make sure you stay close to him because there's cameras all on talking about me so he could get FaceTime in the movie. And I overheard this, and I snapped to the 20-year-old kid who lost all that money because somebody had blocked me. And I went into, oh, the fuck. So action, we go, and the guy runs directly to me to get in between me from me and the other actor. So I'm like, okay. And I kind of give him like just a little push to like, all right, we struggled. Now time for you to go and get out of the way. And he doesn't move. So I dig in and kind of push him a little bit harder. And he digs in back and doesn't move. So I'm like, this son of a bitch is not getting out of the way. So I go to try to push him to the side, and he grabs onto me and holds on. So this is all happening within like 3 seconds. So he's pushing against me as hard as he can, and I'm pushing against him as hard as I can. So finally I went, all right, now I'm a fighter. I grew up, my dad was a fighter. So I take my arms, and I rake them down his biceps into the bend of his arm, and I just give way and bring him toward me. So it breaks that thing, and just all his momentum comes directly toward me. So as his momentum's coming to me, I flip my arms underneath his elbows, and I just kind of toss it.
Oh, shit.
That's because my adrenaline was going nuts, right? I go run in, finish the scene. Steady camera operator comes over, and the same DP that put in the shield, he comes up and he goes, Linc, he goes, I gotta tell you, he goes, that may be the most fucking impressive thing I've ever seen in my life. He goes, but can you do me a favor, with a big smile on his face? He goes, can you not throw the extras into my Steadicam operator? He's like, you threw him like a sack of fucking potatoes. And I was like, dude, I'm so sorry, man. I was just hyped. And he's like, no, it's all good. It was crazy to watch, but he's like, just not do that again. But it was literally, I was so amped up, I tossed him like he weighed 14 pounds. And
I bet you the actor didn't do that shit.
Yeah, right?
no, after that, he was like, he stayed the fuck out of the way.
Oh my God, that's a great story.
Yo, I've done extra work.
I've done extra
you
work
done shit
too.
like
You
that
do.
before.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it was a great one. And Linc, yo, man, thank you so much for being on here today. It was just an amazing thing, and I can't wait for everybody to hear this.
I can't wait. We hope to have you back sometime after
Please.
shit picks up again.
Definitely.
Please, anytime.
Amazing
Thank you
conversation.
guys so much for being here. Like, this was awesome. And hopefully, I know I was chatting so much.
No,
you guys
man,
are
it
awesome.
was
Thank you so
great.
much.
We were
Thank you.
letting you go, man, because it was powerful.
It was
stuff,
powerful.
man.
Yo, I was captivated. Like, I was just captivated the
I'm
entire
telling you.
time on everything you were saying. So it was great. So
I had my gears grinding inside.
yeah,
I'm like,
man, it
shit
got
to-
me
I got shit
moving.
to do when I leave here.
Yeah, right?
So on that note, yo, this has been the Chaos. Thank you guys. We'll see you next week.
Later.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Chaos Control, hosted by Mikey Tableman and Danny J. Gomez, producer and audio engineer Nick Dewar. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review on the Apple Podcasts app or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Join us next week for more chaos.